Digital currencies have become very popular, so much so that Bitcoin, which is the world's biggest cryptocurrency, has gained more than 19-fold this year. But the reality is that many people still don't understand what Bitcoin really is and how to deal in this virtual gold. Take a look at the next report in which we simplify the concept of Bitcoin just for you.
Look at Bitcoins as cash for internet. When you make payments to someone in cash, there is a wallet you take out money from and give that money to the receiver. There is no third person involved. Similarly, when you pay in Bitcoin, there is a digital wallet, sender and a receiver. Go to your digital wallet, which is nothing but an app, type in the amount to be sent, enter the receiver's Bitcoin address and hit send. So if you want to try your hand at this cryptocurrency, there are a lot of digital currency exchanges that help you buy, sell and store Bitcoins. It sounds pretty simple, but it leads us to another question. How Bitcoins are mined or earned in the first place? Where do they come from? And this is what is the most complicated bit about this entire concept of Bitcoins. Remember that unlike traditional currencies, Bitcoins doesn't flow from a top body. It is in fact mined by super powerful computers connected to the internet. So whenever a Bitcoin transaction is made, they are recorded in the form of blocks in a digital ledger on a public network. And this is when the real game begins. As they are recorded as blocks, these super powerful computers, also called miners, start to convert the blocks into sequences of code which require heavy computation. Interestingly, thousands of miners do this conversion game simultaneously, and the first one to crack it currently earns around 12.5 bitcoins, which is approximately $225,000. And the value of Bitcoin is evaluated by what people pay for it. In other words, it's similar to how the stock market works. Bureau Report, WION.
Now, raising red flags over the issue of investment in virtual currencies in India, the government has said that such currencies are like Ponzi schemes. The Ministry of Finance has a statement on virtual currencies, and through the statement, it has cautioned people against risks in investing in virtual currencies. The government has said that there's been a phenomenal increase in recent times in the price of virtual currencies, including Bitcoin in India and around the world. These currencies do not have any intrinsic value and are not backed by any kind of assets. The price of Bitcoin and other virtual currencies, therefore, are entirely a matter of mere speculation, resulting in spurt and volatility in their prices. The government has also said as virtual currencies are stored in digital or electronic formats, it makes them vulnerable to hacking, loss of password, a malware attack, etc. All right, joining me now is my colleague Ankit Tuteja, our resident technology expert, and also joining me is Johan Kastel, a Bitcoin investor and who is a great proponent of cryptocurrencies. If I can come to you, Ankit, a fundamental question here. Are cryptocurrencies an opportunity or a threat? Your thoughts?
So, Ramesh, when you look at something that offer unusually high returns, it comes across as an opportunity. For some people, I would say. But the same thing when happens in the absence of a legal framework, it becomes a threat for some people. So again, I would say cryptocurrency is like a gamble. It works in a way the stock market works. But with the stock market, the thing is that there are exchanges to govern. There is a governing body. But with cryptocurrency, especially in India, there is no governing body. So I would say it's a gamble. It's a gain for some people. It's like a battle loss for some.
Johan, if I can come to you, you are a Bitcoin investor yourself. Now take our viewers through your first-hand experience of investing in Bitcoin. How and when did you begin this investment in Bitcoins?
So I bought a very small portion in November, I think it was. And at that point, the markets were exploding. I mean, I just bought in right before it really just exploded, which meant that, you know, I saw my very small investment pretty much double in value in less than 30 days. And I was thinking, wow, this is incredible. You know, in less than 30 days, I can just double my money. If I can keep going on at this rate, you know, it's a great thing, you know. But then, obviously, when something explodes like that, it makes you wonder, is it a bubble or is it not? At the same time, we also saw the entire market cap of cryptocurrencies explode from about $200 billion up to now $600 billion, which also, I mean, that proves that there is a big amount of money coming into that entire market, and also adoption being picked up. Now the question is if that is big institutions or is it small-time investors that are thinking, oh wow, what a great opportunity, I'm also going to buy in. See, a lot of people were buying in, taking mortgages on their houses, $75,000 at $20,000 per Bitcoin, and then seeing the price go down to $10,000, they freak out and they sell. The people that have a lot of money already in Bitcoin, say since years, they can use opportunities like that with new people coming into the market and basically take their money away.
But Johan, Ankit says it's somewhat like the stock markets, investing in the stock markets. Is that true? I mean, what's been your experience like? And why Bitcoin? There are many other cryptocurrencies around. Why and how did you pick on Bitcoin itself?
Well, Bitcoin is usually the way that most people get into cryptocurrencies. It's the most traded, it's the easiest to take your fiat currency or your dollars or your rupees and convert it into Bitcoin. From Bitcoin you can change to other currencies. The reason why Bitcoin is the biggest one or the most famous one is because it was the first one, the first cryptocurrency to be designed, and it's got the biggest brand name. That's not to say that it is the most high-tech one or the most well-functioning one or the one that we're going to see in the future be the most well-adopted. A lot of people in the industry, they even see Bitcoin as kind of like the Yahoo of cryptocurrencies. While there are actually other Googles out there that are having, better teams, more advanced technology, Bitcoin is the first generation of this kind of currency, and I do think that the industry has a real big part of our future way of doing exchanges.
Right.
But I don't think that Bitcoin is necessarily going to be the coin or the currency that we're trading in.
All right. Ankit, why has the government of India warned people against investing in cryptocurrencies? The government doesn't stop you and me from investing in the stock market, so why cryptocurrencies?
So Ramesh, for that we need to understand how the flow of Bitcoin actually works. It's simply, it involves a digital wallet. Like if I have to give you money, what would I do? I would take out my wallet, I'll pull out some money and give it to you. In the same manner, the Bitcoin works, but the wallet is replaced by a digital wallet. Right. I just have to enter the receiver's address, I just hit the send button and the money goes to you. So when we talk about that why the government is warning people against the use of Bitcoins, we need to understand that there is no third party involved, there is no governing body involved, no bank or any other authority is tied to this process. So there are chances that that money can be misused. And if you look at the concept of the dark web, if you look at the concept of ransomware attacks that happened over the year, all the attackers, all the hackers were asking for money in Bitcoins because this is the most secure form of asking a ransom. So this is one of the reasons. If there is no third party, there is no governing body involved, it's easier for people to actually smuggle their money, to actually get into money laundering acts.
What would you tell someone like Johan, who is a Bitcoin enthusiast, investor himself? Are there any pitfalls in his investments in cryptocurrencies?
Absolutely, I'm sure when he must have invested, he would have thought of making some gains. What happens in a Ponzi scheme, as the Indian government said, that it's they linked it to a Ponzi scheme. What happens in a Ponzi scheme? That unusually high returns are promised, and some people do get it. It's not that some people, like a lot of people, no one is getting high gains. Some people actually get it, but what happens? The early investors are gained from the money of the late entrants. So if you are entering into the market late, your money will be used to give me high returns. And that is how other people are lured into this process of investing into the process. So I'm sure when Johan must have invested, he would have thought of getting more gains. But again, at the same time, it depends on the timing as well. When you are buying, when you are selling, as I said, in the stock market.
Right.
So I'm sure it must have been to do with the timing.
What were your motivations, Johan? Why did you invest in cryptocurrency in the first place?
Well, the first time I heard about it was in 2012, when the price was nothing near what it is today. And then I kept hearing about it year after year, that it breaks a new high, that it breaks a new high. So it was kind of in the back of my mind that, maybe I should also, look into this thing. I do believe in the technology. I do believe in the industry. They always say that when it comes to investing in things like this, that is known to be exceptionally risky. Don't invest more than you're prepared to lose. So with that in mind, I do see it as an opportunity, but at the same time, I'm looking at all the potentials of that whole industry, the long term as well as the short term. Even if I lose money, I'm still learning a lot about a new industry that has very exciting new tech coming out in terms of its startups, in terms of where this whole industry can go. I do think that it's going to replace a lot of traditional banking all around the world, to be honest. And I do think that in the developing world, there's huge potentials where 2 billion people don't even have a bank account. I think it has very bright future.
All right,
Ramesh, I would just like to make a small point here. Going by the cases that we are getting to hear, that people are losing money in cryptocurrency, and at the same time, Indian government is warning people against the investment in bitcoins. But I would like to say that the government needs to do more than just issuing an advisory. They actually need to come up with a framework. They actually need to create a set of regulations. And I think the first step to be done here is to regulate the exchanges that are working in the country, because once you do the proper audits, you can actually create a legal framework properly, so that people, instead of just following the advisory, they can actually know that what is right and what is wrong for them.
Absolutely. On that note, Ankit and Johan, thank you so much for joining me on the discussion about cryptocurrency this evening. Thank you so much. All right, moving on to the next story we are tracking here on Your Story this evening. WeChat, a popular messaging app in China similar to Facebook owned WhatsApp, has announced a brand new project. Now, Chinese government officials have launched a pilot program which creates a virtual version of their government-issued ID cards through WeChat. These digital IDs will be accepted in place of government IDs for hotel check-ins, airport security checks, among other services. Now, the virtual ID system will improve precision in identification through facial recognition and effectively protect a user's privacy. The program is currently available in the southern Guangdong province, but is expected to be extended nationwide. Now, this is a part of a larger plan to create convenient electronic IDs across the country.
比如说别人捡到你的身份证实体证件，还可以把你上面的信息扒走，然后冒用你的身份，比如说复印个身份证复印件，可以去申请银行卡或者是信用卡。那么身份证网站他拿到，除非他拿到你的人脸，拿到你的指纹，才有可能实现这样一个操作，但是这个难度是非常高的。
Now, WeChat has evolved from China's answer to WhatsApp to an all-in-one app that lets users order food, hail cars, and pay utility bills through its payment function. It has made cash and credit cards obsolete for many users, and it might soon do the same to physical identity cards issued by the government of China. All right, I'm now joined by Einar Thangen, who joins us via Skype from Beijing. Thank you, Einar. And also joining me in the studio is my colleague Ankit Tuteja. Thank you, Ankit. If I can go to Einar. Einar, is China turning into a police state, if you will? We've heard reports about facial recognition technology being used to surveil Chinese citizens. We have CCTV cameras. We have DNA samples being collected of residents in Xinjiang. Biometric data, iris scans, fingerprints, mass surveillance. I mean, how does it all, square with this new emphasis on digital, the leap, as it were, by China?
Well, if you start putting together the large data, artificial intelligence, what you're going to get is exactly what they're doing, which is this ability to know what is happening almost anywhere. I mean, even within India, you now have a real name registration program where if you have to link your account to your phone to everything else. This is also very common. It's going to become more and more common even in developed countries. But in developing, emerging countries like India and China, the opportunities and the efficiencies are so great that it's hard to ignore. But even as you see WeChat going forward on this, you also notice that they announced at the same time they're going to put limits on the electronic wallet that you can use every day, and that it could be between 100 to 1,000 to 5,000 renminbi per day. So just like your previous conversation about Bitcoin and the electronic purse and things like that. Governments are going to get much more involved in this because they cannot afford to have these kinds of things being used for illegal purposes.
Right. Ankit, I want you to weigh in on this issue as well. Technology versus human freedoms. Now, where do you stand on this debate?
So, Ramesh, I don't have a problem with authenticated identification, and especially if it goes digital. I mean, we are the ones who are going to be benefited if everything is digital. But my point here is that why a private player should be having access to my sensitive data? That is the concern here. Recently, we got to know about this WeChat that the Chinese government is actually allowing people to link their personal identification cards and number to the messaging app. This is basically setting a trend. And it was a couple of days ago when Facebook actually was testing something, and they actually were asking people to enter your Aadhaar name, and they rolled it back. I mean, of course, the idea was not to have their Aadhaar details, but my concern here is it's basically setting a trend where private players in the future might have access to our sensitive data, and that is something that we should be worried about.
Indeed, and I want to take that point across to Einar. Einar, what about privacy issues? How concerned should a Chinese national be with all these developments happening around him or her?
Well, I think there's good reason to be concerned. Privacy is one of the things we expect. But in the digital age, unfortunately, this as they say, the closing the barn door after the horses are out is too late. You'll notice that in both Brexit and in the elections that catapulted Donald Trump, there was something called Cambridge Analytica. They boasted that they had between 4,500 to 5,500 data points on 220 million people, which allowed them to accurately forecast what people were going to do. It is a strange new age, and unfortunately, we public side people should be looking to make sure that privacy is protected, that information that should not be going out is not necessary, isn't. But it's going to be very difficult to corral.
All right, on that note, I want to thank you, Einar Tangen and Ankit Tuteja, for joining me on the discussion about police states and mass surveillance. Anyway, we'll discuss more about this going forward, but I want to thank my guests.